The film opens with a bee flying through the air. Meanwhile, a wasp appears and knocks the bee to the ground. The wasp then stings the bee. The scene cuts, and we are introduced to the main character, Julia. She runs a catering company where her only employee, Paul, helps her. Reaching the event venue, Julia takes Paul's phone so he could pay attention to his job. Julia then meets Flora, the housemaid, and notices that the musician for the event has also arrived. The musician is busy setting up his equipment. Meanwhile, Sydney, the owner's son, approaches Paul. Sydney secretly drinks beer, clearly nervous, about his mother catching him from his behavior. We can sense that he is a special kind of person. He tells Paul that they don't live at the villa but often visit it for parties. During their conversation, we also see Sydney's pet wandering through the garden, unknowingly digging a hole. Underneath the hole, there is a wasp's hive, and one of the wasps comes out and stings Paul, causing his pants to tear. Frustrated, Paul heads to the van to change his torn pants. Working, he reaches the owner's garden. The pet was also there. Well, it was night. The guests were there, and the party starts. All well-known personalities were present at the party, including the city's mayor, Julia, and Paul were serving the guests, and during this, Julia steps on the wasp's hive, dug by the pet. Julia didn't know what she did, but wasps came out from there speedily to avoid the chaos in the party. Paul kills many wasps, but a wasp sits on Sydney's shoulder. He kills it with his hand. The wasps were coming out continuously. One of the guests suddenly falls ill after being stung multiple times by wasps. All the guests gather around to check on him, while a swarm of wasps is shown emerging from the pit. The wasps begin attacking the guests one by one, but those who manage to kill the wasps remain unharmed. But those who fail to defend themselves find themselves in serious trouble. Their stung wasn't normal, but they were laying eggs in the guest's body through their stung. After it, a terrible scene is shown that the egg transforms the human body, or we may say that a human-sized wasp comes out from human body. In this procedure, the humans were dying and torn pieces of their bodies were shown on these huge, terrible creature. Paul sees a wasp coming out from a man's body while tearing it. He gets scared. Julia and Paul see only a way to escape. They try to move inside the house while getting covered with a tablecloth. Julia is distracted when she sees a wasp coming out from a lady's mouth while tearing it. Paul was pushed and fell due to this. He also lost Van Keys. The wasp comes out from that lady and stands near Paul, and it was ready to eat him. Paul still sees that lady's face that was attached to the wasp's wings. Before this wasp could eat Paul, Julia comes and courageously kicks the wasp and drags Paul inside the house. Flora was asking them to come inside, hearing her voice. A wasp also tries to attack her, but before this, their pet comes out and the wasp moves behind the pet, leaving Flora. Getting advantage of the opportunity, Paul, Julia, and Flora come inside the house. Only 3 more people were in the house except for them, Sydney, his mom, and the mayor. They feel that it is a terrible dream, but they can't see the same dream they have to find some way to survive. But they also don't have their phones. Meanwhile, Sydney tells them about a landline, but then they see a wasp attack a car driver due to it. The car driver loses control over his car, and it hits a telephone tower. The connection of their telephone also broke, and a terrible scene is shown from the car window that a wasp comes out while tearing a human body. At the window on which they were standing, a man asks for help from them. He was requesting them to open the window and to take him inside, but Sydney refused, while warning that getting stung would lead to serious trouble. He might have seemed foolish, but he wasn't. He says this house is not safe if we want to stay. Safe, we should move to the basement and we'll have to wait for help there. They were planning and they heard Flora screaming. When they go and check, she was injured by Sydney's mom. Sydney's mom was stung and now a huge wasp comes out of her body. Before it could come out completely, Sydney moved her away from him. Before the wasp could kill them, they run to the other room and shut the door. Now, because Flora was injured, they made her sit outside the door. Before they could think of anything, the wasp put its sting across the door where Flora was sitting. This stung stabs her head wide, tearing her eye, and kills her. They were scared by this terrible death. Meanwhile, the wasp puts its stung across the door and captures Paul. They don't let Paul die. Julia and the mayor injure the wasp with a knife and save Paul. They were running toward the basement while escaping him. Meanwhile, the wasp signaled the other wasps and called them, from which they found that this wasp is the queen. They run to the basement and locked themselves there. Now the question was whether they would be safe in the basement, especially as we noticed strange movements in Sydney's body. There was a mutation in his body, and it was clear that a wasp would come out of his body. Sydney knows what is happening. He was special, but his parents never gave him importance and they didn't know about his intelligence. He used to do many experiments, and this time, he had put a growth hormone made by him in the fertilizer, and he knew that the wasps are mutated. Because of his growth hormone, Sydney was telling them all this. Meanwhile, the light goes off. It is shown that the wasps cut the light because there was a human mind in their bodies, and they can think as well. This idea didn't work because the light came due to a backup generator, but they got scared of wasp backs. They don't know what wasps can do. They plan to escape from there as soon as possible. How can they leave the city? Paul dropped the van keys out, and who would bring them? Paul takes the responsibility to do this work. He comes out while slithering and gets the key. He spots Sydney's pet there and is about to go rescue it when a giant wasp, the same size, suddenly emerges. Without wasting a second, the wasp attacks Paul. Desperately trying to escape, Paul feels around on the ground and finds an ice pick. He fights back with it, striking the wasp and killing it, managing to escape just in time. The creepiest scene is shown in the basement where a wasp was coming out of Sydney's body, but because Sydney was a deformed human, so the wasp didn't come out of his body as normal humans. A small wasp came out from his deformed shoulder and then controlled his body and brain completely. Before Sydney could attack Julia and the mayor, Paul entered like a hero from the window. He makes Sydney fell. Sydney was about to stand up, but he rolled his legs and made him fall far. After it, the mayor and Paul immediately throw a shelf on him, which freed them from this trouble. They now have to move out, but they can't go from the basement window because many wasps were coming from there. When they moved upstairs, they get shocked to see that the wasps had changed the whole house into their hive. They decide to move gradually, but unfortunately, the mayor gets it with a wasp. Likewise, he became the wasp's prey. They tried to save the mayor, but the wasp was now eating the mayor. The mayor let himself be the prey of this wasp so that at least Paul and Julia could escape. The wasp was about to chase them, but luckily, there was a room after them in which they hoe and shut the door. They were saved for now, but they know that they can't escape for a long time. They get tired, so they hide under the table. They come close to each other while talking, but then they find out that a wasp has come inside, while breaking the door. It was about to attack them, but they threw the table at it and saved themselves. Before they could do something, the wasp made cracks in the roof. They came out to escape and move out of the house through the wall broken by the wasp. They have to go to their van, but how can they? Because the queen stabs Paul's shoulder from above. It was taking Paul upside, but Julia hits its sting and breaks it. Julia's act makes the queen furious and it throws Julia far. After it, the queen leaves with Paul. Julia could run to escape, but Paul's screams were stopping her. The queen takes Paul and places him at the place where they kept all the other humans. Sydney was also there, who takes out that sting from Paul's shoulder. Sydney is not only a human, but also a type of wasp. That's why he didn't take out the sting to help him, but to torture him. The queen gives Sydney a larva, and Sydney tries to put it in Paul. Before he succeeds in his plan, Julia enters from behind with an electric saw. First, she cuts the wasp from Sydney's shoulder and throws it far. She also stops the queen to come near Paul through it. Julia was leaving with Paul while throwing the larva far, but the queen follows them. Now Sydney, who was now free from the wasp, helps them both and captures the queen from behind. The queen kills Sydney in anger while stabbing him. They finally reach the van, leaving several gas valves open inside the house. Afterward, they ignite the gas with a matchstick, causing the house to explode. The flames consume the wasps inside, and for a moment it feels like their nightmare is over. But it isn't. The burning queen wasp appears behind them, merging with the van in a final attack. Thinking quickly, Paul uses his intelligence and crashes the van into a tree, killing the queen. Julia's condition worsens because of the incident, and Paul desperately tries to wake her up, but then Paul began to fear that Julia had died, as she remained unconscious for a long time. Just as he lost hope, Julia suddenly opened her eyes. and he breathed a sigh of relief. Meanwhile, rescue and police officers arrived, and they were finally rescued. They kiss each other and are about to leave when a huge cow's head suddenly falls on an officer, killing him instantly. From a distance, it's revealed that more wasps are approaching, emerging from the cattle's body much like they did from the humans earlier. Now, they are coming out of the cattle. The movie ends here, leaving the mystery of what will happen next.